A jury officially rules against Elon Musk in his existential trial with OpenAI. 70% of Americans say they would rather live near a nuclear power plant than an AI data center. And ChatGPT links directly to your bank account. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I'm your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, Senior Software Engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the Populist Revolt and model Convergence this Monday, May 18th, 2026. The artificial intelligence industry is winning in the courtroom, but rapidly losing the public. A jury has officially ruled against Elon Musk in his attempt to tear down OpenAI, clearing a massive legal hurdle ahead of the lab's highly anticipated IPO. And OpenAI is expanding aggressively, officially launching a new feature that connects ChatGPT directly to user bank and investment accounts via Plaid. However, the physical footprint of this technology is facing a massive populist backlash. A new Gallup survey reveals that 70% of Americans oppose data centers being built in their towns, making AI infrastructure less popular than local nuclear power plants. To survive this regulatory and public pushback, companies are quietly pivoting. We uncover how OpenAI has been secretly pushing highly capable open-weight models that enterprises can run locally, entirely offline. But before we dive into the data, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing the app you are listening on right now dictate what intelligence reaches your feed. To ensure you never miss our most critical forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it is the most effective way to help us scale this independent research. Today's episode is brought to you by Area. When the public rejects cloud infrastructure and enterprises demand local, secure models, your organization needs flawless technical intelligence. A special thank you to Area for sponsoring today's forensic briefing. Let's unravel the day.
Before we begin today's briefing, a note for the brands listening. If you want to reach the true architects of the AI revolution, the technical leaders actually building the stack, not just the tourists, DJAMGAMIND offers select premium partnership opportunities. Let us position your product directly in front of the ultimate technical buyer. Visit jamgamind.com/partners.
You take a perfectly healthy, brilliantly engineered heart, and you perform the transplant surgery flawlessly.
Right.
And the monitor starts beeping. The mechanics are a complete success. But then the body's immune system looks at this modern miracle and, well, decides it's a hostile invader.
It just aggressively rejects it.
Exactly. It completely rejects it. And that physiological paradox, where the system refuses the very thing that was built to upgrade it, that is exactly what we are watching happen across the technology landscape today.
Yeah, it really is the perfect analogy for this moment.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. For Monday, May 18th, 2026. We are taking your stack of intelligence reports, financial filings, and all the tech news, and we are doing a forensic deep dive into a massive colliding narrative.
It's basically a perfect storm.
Right. Let's call it the Populist Revolt and model Convergence. Because right now, AI has reached true enterprise scale, but it is hitting an absolute brick wall. I'm talking massive public and physical rejection.
We are definitely looking at a fascinating inflection point here. The whole culture war against artificial intelligence, it has moved way past, just social media complaints.
Oh, absolutely.
It is now actively reshaping the physical infrastructure, the business models, and even the underlying code of the world's largest companies. To survive this immune response you mentioned, these tech giants are being forced into a radical pivot.
And they're trying to hide it, right?
Yeah, they are. They're abandoning the dream of infinite cloud megabrains and instead trying to sneak straight into your local enterprise hardware and in some cases directly into your personal bank account. So today we are going to perform a forensic autopsy on how that is actually playing out.
We have to start with the sheer whiplash of this moment, because the industry is experiencing a massive legal victory at the exact same time as a crushing cultural defeat.
Yeah, the juxtaposition is pretty wild.
So on the legal front, we have breaking news. A jury just ruled against Elon Musk in his existential lawsuit against OpenAI. Musk had essentially claimed OpenAI abandoned its original nonprofit mission for corporate greed, and he basically wanted the courts to tear the company down to the studs.
But the crucial detail in that ruling is the actual mechanism of the dismissal. Because the jury didn't issue some grand philosophical verdict on the soul of artificial intelligence, right?
Right. They didn't care about the foundational promises.
Exactly. They just determined that Musk simply filed his claims too late. I mean, it was a procedural guillotine.
Wow. So just a statute of limitations thing.
Pretty much. But if you look at the business implications, that technicality is staggering. By removing the legal threat of being totally dismantled, this ruling completely clears the runway for OpenAI's highly anticipated $1 trillion IPO.
$1 trillion.
Yeah.
I mean, the scale of that valuation is just unfathomable.
It is. The dark cloud over their corporate structure is gone now. It basically leaves them virtually invincible in the courtroom.
Okay, so legally, they are untouchable. But in the court of public opinion, the tech industry is facing a level of hostility that almost borders on delusion.
Oh, the backlash is intense.
Let's talk about the viral Monet Gate incident on X this past week. For those of you listening who might have missed it, there's this artist who goes by the handle SHL0MS, and he posted an image online.
And it was a real painting, right?
Yes, it was a real painting from Claude Monet's famous Water Lilies collection, completely verified, hanging in a museum real from around 1915. But SHL0MS lied to his followers. He told the internet it was an AI-generated image created in the style of Monet and just asked people to critique it.
And the response was, frankly, a masterclass in psychological conditioning.
It was insane. Thousands of users destroyed a literal 1915 historical masterpiece. They called it emotionless slop. They wrote these lengthy, detailed threads attacking its lack of depth, complaining about its messy reflections, its poor composition.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, it's like pouring everyone a glass of vintage 1945 Bordeaux, but the moment you say it has a screw top, they suddenly claim it tastes like wet cardboard. Like, do these tech companies realize how deep this knee-jerk hostility actually runs?
They are starting to, yeah. And there is actual empirical data explaining that exact reflex. Research out of Norway back in 2024 ran blind tests on this phenomenon.
Really? What did they find?
Well, when participants didn't know the origin of an artwork, they consistently preferred the AI-generated images. They actually rated them higher for aesthetic appeal and composition than human-made art.
You're kidding.
Nope. But the moment the researchers revealed the image was AI, the scores absolutely plummeted. The underlying mechanism here is all about the psychological contract of proof of work.
Okay, proof of work, meaning what exactly?
Meaning we inherently value art based on the perceived human struggle and the scarcity required to create it. When an AI generates an image in 3 seconds, it breaks that contract. The word AI itself has become a cognitive trigger for cheapness, regardless of how good the actual output is.
Okay, so we have a digital public that is biologically wired to reject the output. But this isn't just about pixels on a screen or angry comments anymore, is it?
No, not at all.
Because if you hate the art, you definitely don't want the factory that makes the art sitting in your backyard. That cultural hatred is manifesting in the physical world, and it is creating a massive bottleneck.
The physical data center is absolutely ground zero for this populist backlash.
Right. Just look at the new Gallup poll that just dropped. 70% of Americans now oppose local AI data centers being built in their areas. 70%.
It's a huge number.
They're literally polling as significantly less popular than local nuclear power plants.
Which is just wild. Consider the historical anxiety around nuclear energy and then realize that communities would rather host a fission reactor than a server farm.
Yeah, let that sink in for a second.
And the hostility is entirely bipartisan, too. It crosses every political demographic. The anger is grounded in tangible local disruption because a 1.6 gigawatt data center consumes the power of a small city.
And the water, too, right?
Exactly. Residents are terrified of brownouts, the massive draw on local water aquifers for the cooling systems, and just the relentless low-frequency hum of industrial fans running 24/7. We are seeing this geopolitical tension spill right into public spaces. Eric Schmidt was recently actively booed while delivering a commencement speech.
Just for talking about AI.
Yep. Simply for advocating for more AI infrastructure.
You also see it with the pushback against Kevin O'Leary's proposed data center out in Utah.
Yeah.
He pitches this massive facility on television, and the local reaction is just sheer outrage.
Even though his plan was totally self-sufficient.
Right. The plans clearly show the project uses its own independent power grid, it sources its own water, and it's located in a completely remote area where it wouldn't disrupt a single neighborhood. But the facts of the proposal just don't matter anymore. The overarching vibe is aggressively anti-AI.
And that physical bottleneck is having immediate structural consequences on the technology itself. The compute squeeze is getting so severe that over at Google, their own DeepMind researchers are currently waiting in line for TPU access their custom AI processing chips.
Wait, I have to stop you there. Google is rationing its own chips to its own top-tier researchers.
Yeah, they are.
But aren't they basically mortgaging their long-term AI dominance just to make this quarter's cloud revenue look good? Like, why starve your own brain trust?
Because of the financial mandates driving the cloud division. See, Google signed a massive $40 billion deal with Anthropic covering 5 gigawatts of capacity. The executives running Google Cloud are highly incentivized to sell that compute in bulk to outside customers like Anthropic and Meta.
To show immediate revenue growth.
Exactly. Internal R&D, meanwhile, is viewed as a sunk cost. So researchers are seeing their access to compute rationed by managerial seniority rather than the actual technical needs of their experiments.
That sounds like a recipe for a talent drain.
It is. We are seeing top talent leave Google for agile startups simply because the startups can actually buy the compute that Google refuses to allocate internally.
Wow. Okay, so if we can't build the brain because the body rejects the transplant, if communities refuse to zone these massive data centers, how does the industry move forward? What happens to the AI boom?
Well, there are a few proposals out there to solve this physical friction, and the most compelling one requires a total shift in how these companies treat local populations. Ben Thompson recently outlined a pretty radical approach in his Strategy newsletter.
Oh, I read that breakdown, and the math is just fascinating. He argued that if you have a 1.6 gigawatt data center, it's going to gross roughly $3 billion a year in revenue, right?
Right.
So say you want to build it in a town like DeForest, Wisconsin, which has about 11,500 residents. Instead of fighting the city council or launching a massive PR campaign, you just pay every single resident $10,000 a year in cash.
Just for living there.
Exactly. A direct, localized, universal basic income just for living near the servers.
It's essentially a direct dividend for hosting the infrastructure.
And the crazy part is, $10,000 per resident only costs the company about $115 million a year. That is just 3.8% of the data center's gross revenue. You cut those checks, and I guarantee the populist anger disappears, the zoning gets approved, and people start begging you to build in their town.
The logic is completely sound, but tech companies are, culturally speaking, allergic to direct wealth distribution.
Yeah, they'd rather build a playground.
Exactly. They prefer offering abstract community grants or building a local park. But until they are willing to fundamentally share the revenue with the local grid, the friction remains, which means if the tech giants cannot scale up their physical footprint in the cloud, they have absolutely no choice but to shrink the models and run them locally.
Which brings us to the convergence on local utility, and arguably the most important strategic move OpenAI has made all year.
It totally flew under the radar, too.
It really did. So 2 days before they launched GPT-5, which of course predictably sucked all the oxygen out of the news cycle, they quietly dropped 2 open-weight models onto the internet. GPT-OSS 120B and GPT-OSS 20B.
And they released them under a highly permissive Apache 2.0 license.
Right, meaning anyone can use or modify them commercially for completely free.
The technical architecture of these models is really what signals the industry shift here. These are MOE, or Mixture of Experts models.
How does that differ from the older models?
Well, instead of activating the entire neural network for every single question, which requires massive, massive computing power, an MOE model acts more like a committee. If you ask a coding question, only the programming expert subnetwork activates. If you ask a math question, only the math expert fires. Combine that efficiency with advanced chain of thought reasoning, and you have highly capable systems that require a fraction of the hardware.
Let me just translate the specs on the smaller one, the 20B model, because it is wild for the listener to grasp. This model fits into just 16 gigabytes of memory, meaning you could run a state-of-the-art reasoning AI locally on the 5-year-old laptop sitting on your kitchen counter right now. No Wi-Fi required, absolutely no data sent to a server.
And the larger model, the GPT-OSS 120B, achieves performance parity with proprietary models like a 4 Mini, yet it is compute efficient enough to run on a single 80-gigabyte GPU in a corporate server room or even a fully maxed-out MacBook Pro. It fundamentally decentralizes the intelligence.
But the developer community hasn't fully embraced it yet, right?
No, they haven't. The broader open-source developer community has been surprisingly slow to adopt them.
Why the hesitation? I mean, if OpenAI is giving away such powerful tools for free, Shouldn't developers be all over this?
It really comes down to how developers are used to customizing models. The community heavily favors models that can be easily fine-tuned using supervised learning, basically feeding the AI thousands of examples of how you want it to behave. But the GPT-OSS models are reasoning engines.
So they don't respond well to that?
Right. They are built to pause, search, and think through problems using reinforcement learning. They resist traditional fine-tuning, forcing developers to learn entirely new methodologies to wrangle them.
Even with that learning curve, though, I have to question the business logic here. OpenAI famously stopped being open years ago. They closed off all their research to build a massive commercial moat, suddenly giving away state-of-the-art reasoning models for free. That feels like Apple deciding to open source iOS. What is the mechanism forcing them to give away the crown jewels?
The highly regulated enterprise sector forced their hand. Think about defense contractors, national healthcare networks, or massive financial institutions.
Oh, they don't play around with data.
Not at all. These entities have absolute, non-negotiable security requirements. They completely refuse to send their proprietary, classified, or patient data across the internet to OpenAI's cloud servers. They demand to run the workloads locally on isolated servers they physically control. OpenAI realized that if they did not provide a high-performing, local, open-weight option, they were going to lose the entire regulated enterprise market to competitors like Meta's Llama.
When even OpenAI realizes that enterprises demand total control over their data and need to run models locally to meet security requirements, it is clear that deploying AI requires serious management infrastructure. We want to thank our sponsor, AI for making today's briefing possible. AI provides the enterprise-grade AI management platform that organizations need to turn raw AI potential into measurable, secure workflow automation inside their own environments. You can find their link in the show notes.
And that obsession with enterprise security is also why, about 3 months after the initial release, OpenAI followed up with the safeguard versions of those models.
All right, the safeguard models.
Yeah, the GPT-OSS Safeguard 120B and 20B specifically allow a corporation to embed its own auditable safety policies directly into the model's reasoning process. It is a highly calculated move to make the technology palatable to the most risk-averse legal departments on the planet.
Okay, so on the corporate side, the strategy is basically survival through local, isolated, highly secure utility. But what about the consumer side? Because as Monet proved, the general public views consumer AI as a parlor trick at best and cultural poison at worst. If you are an AI company staring down that level of hostility, you need a moat so deep that consumers literally cannot abandon your product.
And the industry has officially decided that the ultimate moat is your wallet.
Which brings us to the new personal finance experience OpenAI just rolled out inside ChatGPT. They formed a massive partnership with Plaid.
Right, the data network that connects apps like Venmo to traditional banks.
Exactly. Because of that integration, users can now link ChatGPT directly to their Chase checking accounts, their Schwab investment portfolios, and over 12,000 other financial institutions.
The transition from a conversational chatbot to a holistic financial engine is a massive, massive paradigm shift. ChatGPT now has continuous, real-time context on your spending habits, your asset allocation, and your upcoming liabilities.
You can't actually move the money, though, right?
It cannot execute trades or move your money yet, but the roadmap is super aggressive. Intuit support is rolling out next, which is going to bring real-time tax liability estimates and credit card approval odds directly into the interface.
See, if you are listening to this right now, I really want you to think about the stakes here. Inviting a large language model into your checking account feels like handing a psychic your social security number and your tax returns. I mean, it is profoundly invasive. Given the public hatred of data centers and AI art that we just discussed, is handing an algorithm real-time access to our entire financial lives really going to work? Will people actually cross that privacy threshold?
The bet is that the utility will overwhelmingly conquer the privacy concerns. For the last decade, truly personalized financial optimization has been a luxury, locked behind expensive human wealth advisors or, poorly stitched together across half a dozen clunky apps.
Yeah, it's never been seamless.
Right. By giving the AI a comprehensive view of your financial reality, the machine can spot microtrends you miss. It can optimize your daily cash flow, catch redundant subscriptions, and alert you to systemic risks in your 401k. Once a consumer experiences that level of bespoke, proactive financial management, the tool becomes structurally too valuable to turn off.
So it just becomes indispensable.
Exactly. The only barrier is trust, which is why OpenAI isn't asking you to hand them your bank password directly. They are leveraging Plaid's established reputation as a secure intermediary. They are embedding the model into the absolute core of your daily survival.
Wow. Let's pull all of these threads together, because the paradox we are analyzing today is just staggering. You have a technology winning trillion-dollar court battles, yet facing a furious public that actively rejects its physical infrastructure and hates its artistic output. In response, the entire industry is abandoning the infinite cloud. They are shrinking the intelligence to fit onto local MacBooks to win over terrified corporations, and they are giving deep into our personal bank accounts to make themselves financially indispensable to the everyday consumer.
It is an evolutionary adaptation for survival, pure and simple. And if we zoom out to look at the long-term societal impact of that adaptation, I really want to leave you with a framework to consider.
Okay, let's hear it.
There was a deeply insightful report in the Financial Times this week analyzing the global collapse in birth rates.
Oh, I saw that. The charts in that piece were striking.
They really were. The report pointed out that while birth rates have been steadily declining since the Industrial Revolution, the introduction of the smartphone rapidly accelerated that downward curve. The mechanism behind that acceleration was the smartphone acting as an unprecedented bundle. It bundled communication, endless entertainment, and daily utility into one device that fundamentally altered human social habits. It basically eliminated the boredom that historically drove spontaneous socialization and ultimately delayed family formation.
The ultimate behavioral sink.
Consider what that means for the trend we are discussing today. If the smartphone was the first technological bundle powerful enough to alter human demographic trajectories, what happens to our psychology when the next bundle arrives?
So that is exactly what this local model convergence represents.
Exactly. We are talking about a hyper-personalized AI that perfectly mimics human reasoning, manages your financial anxieties in real time, never forgets a single detail about your life, and lives locally on your devices, completely untethered from the internet.
It's always there.
Always. When that level of intimate utility becomes your primary daily companion, what is the behavioral fallout? Does this synthetic relationship accelerate our isolation, tricking our brains into feeling socially fulfilled? Or by taking the friction out of our daily chores and financial stress, does it finally free up enough mental bandwidth for us to put the screens down and re-engage with the physical world?
It is the ultimate unknown. Are we building a local utility to help us navigate the complexities of modern life? Or have we engineered a synthetic heart so perfectly isolated that it replaces the need for the real thing entirely? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden currents of the AI revolution. Keep questioning the consensus, keep looking at the data, and we will catch you next time.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.